Okay, welcome to Web Development, Intro to Web Development for April 16th. I'm using Zoom to record this because I found that my regular recorder didn't allow me to switch screens. So that's kind of a problem. We're going to be bumping back and forth a lot in here, so I'm going to switch screens. So I'm going to do a little share here. There we go, or no, that's what I want. Okay, you normally see me hanging out in the upper right-hand corner here, but that's kind of scary, so I'm just going to get rid of myself. Okay, what we're going to do is we're going to make a landing page. So we're going to make a page for this device, which I call the USB Idea Generator. If you're short on ideas, just plug it in, think a little bit, light bulb goes off, hey, you got an idea that you can use. So very handy for writing books or trying to create web pages. So we're going to create a page for that. So this is the image we're going to use. What we're going to do is we're going to create a landing page. A landing page is a place where we can drop in. It gives a little product description, gives us the possibility of buying it and some other links and contact info. When you do a project like this, generally the first thing you want to do is a mock-up. You want to know what you're doing. So I just made a quick mock-up here. At the top, we're going to have our product links. Links to other products or things like that. In the left, we're going to have that image that I just showed you. On the right, we're going to have some description text and a purchase button. Hey, we want to be able to purchase this. On the bottom, we're going to have some contact info. So that's how we're going to set it up. So I just got to remember to switch my share this way instead of flipping over. So let's go here. So go ahead and open up an editor. I created a file called idea.html where I'm going to keep all this. If I need to, I'll put a copy of that file up. If we may not finish it today, we may go on to next week to finish it. So let's create a standard file. You should be familiar with this. So let's create an HTML tag, opening and closing. I always like to complete my tags before I do the next thing. Let's create a head. Inside our head, we're going to have a title. Again, I'm going to do this relatively quick. So if you can't keep up, go ahead and pause the video, catch up, and then start it again, or back up the video a little bit. Our title is going to be USB Idea Generator. Okay. Under the head, of course, we need our body, where all the code that shows, not D, there we go. All the code that shows up on the page goes in here. Opening and closing, and then, oops, where to type? There we go. Then I'm going to do some inline style, some cascading style sheets. Inline, which means they're going to live on the page. I'm going to put that at the bottom of the body. So I'm just going to create, oops, not really. Okay, so we've got that set up, just a basic page. Okay. I'm going to go ahead and save that a little bit. If you look at it, nothing's there because there's nothing inside that body to show right now. Okay, so let's go back and look at our mock-up real quick. Okay, so here's our mock-up. So we're going to have a product head. So what we're going to do up here is, here, let's just use a little board. So this right here is going to be a div tag so that we could separate it and style it. Same thing with the bottom. Our contact info down there is going to be a div tag. Then our main body itself, that's going to be one large div tag to separate everything. But inside of here, we're going to have a div tag for the image on the left, and we're going to have a div tag for everything else on the right so that we can style it and separate them. So we're going to have 5 div tags. 3 main, we'll probably call this one head, we'll probably call this one foot, and maybe we'll call this one main. So then in here, we're going to create a div that we'll call image, and another div we'll call the description, just DASC. Okay, so what I'm going to go do is I'm going to go create those div tags. So let's go back to our code editor. Okay, so inside of our body, I'll give myself a little bit of room here so that you can see. Okay, so the first thing we want is we want a div that we're going to give an ID. Oops, not plus equals, and we're going to call it head. And we're going to put some stuff in that div tag eventually, not quite yet. Okay, under that, then we had our div with an ID of main. That's where our image and our description is going to go. We're going to put our closing div tag in here. And actually, I should tab all these over so that they easily see that they're in the body. There we go. And then under that, I'm going to have a div ID equals foot, which is going to be the footer at the bottom with our contact info. Okay, inside of our div main, we're going to have two other divs. ID equals, I believe it was image. Div, okay, and then our other div is going to be ID equals, and that's where our description is going to go. Okay, div, there you go. Let's want to pause my record. How do I do that? Okay, well, I don't know.
Press on the down arrow by stop video. Maybe on the other side.
No, okay. Well, that's my daughter sneaking in, so she'll be in this video. Hey, look at that. Although you couldn't see her because we're on a screen share. Okay, so we've got our divs set up. If I go back, resume share. Okay, so we got our divs set up. If I go back and look at our mockup, we see our head, our main, our foot, and our two divs. So now we're ready to put stuff in there. So let's start with making this div stand out a little bit. So let's just go up to our head one. Oops. And let's just put in a little text. Let's say product links. We'll replace this eventually, but now we've got a little placeholder. Our image, we'll put in image. Our description, we'll put in description. I don't know if I spelled that right, looks like it. And our footer, we'll put in contact info. Okay, now if I save that, and then we're gonna go view it. So I'm going to, let me pull it up this way, then I'll go and find it for you. Let me open up idea.html, there we go. Okay, so it's thinking about it. So now I'm going to share my screen right here. Okay, so there you see our product links, our image, our description, our contact info, all in divs. Because they're in divs, they do a break. Now let's do this just to show what these divs look like. So let's go back to our code. And let's add some styles so we can see what these divs look like. So tab, let's add, remember for an ID, we'll use the pound or hashtag, head. And actually, let's make all the divs stand out first. Before we add our head stuff, let's just do one just for divs. All we have are those divs right there. So if you don't put a pound or a hashtag in front of it, it just looks for the div tag. So every div tag is going to have this style in it. We're going to add a border so we can see where these divs live. Border, oops. Border colon solid. Okay. So save that and let's go take a look at our idea generator page. Shift refresh. Oh, okay, there we got borders. We got the border on the product links. Now you see how this is really double black? That's because there's one div surrounding image and description, then those divs have that. So those borders show us where those divs are right now. So let's go play a little bit more with that. Let's go back to our share. Let's go back to this. Okay, so we got our head. Let's give it a little height. So this may or may not work. It might have to use line height, but let's try height first. Height, let's make it a height of 100 pixels. Okay. Let's go to our next div down main, pound main. And let's give that a height of 400 pixels. Okay. Inside of there, let's go to div image. So our pound image, give that a height of 150 pixels. And actually what I'm going to do is I'm going to add this height to, no, let's separate description. I could do this one of two ways. I can create another pound description, or I could put, here, let's do it right now. I'm going to switch it later, but if I do comma pound description, what that does is it applies this to image, pound image, and pound description. And then let's go to our footer. And let's give that a height of 100 pixels. Oops, missed the X. Okay, let's save that. And let's go see what that did. So I'm going to go look at my file, shift refresh. Boom, there we go. So we got our 100 pics, 100 pics. This div right here, main, has 400 pixels, and each of these are 150. Okay, so now let's go arrange our image and our description really quick, because if we look at our mockup, we have the image on the left, the description on the right. So let's go to our image that's supposed to be on the left. So here I'm going to separate these two. I'm going to put back in the height 150. But now I'm going to also add float, or I'm going to add a width. First of all, width. And instead of pixels, I just want it 50%. So 50% of the width of the container it's in, which would be 50% of main. Okay. While I'm here, I'm going to make description also a width 50%. So they're both, between the two of them, take up 100%. Then the one that appears first, we're going to do this. I'm going to add float, just like we did with our images before, left. So I want that one to float on the left, and let's see if the other one will appear on the right, or if I have to add a float right to the other side. So, okay, so let's, I saved it. Let's go view it. Shift refresh. Okay, so where'd it go? Oh, description's down there. So we got our 50%, but our float didn't quite work. So let's try this. Oops, I don't want to do it that way because you can't see me change screens. There we go. Go back to our code. Sure. Okay. So let's add here float right, and let's see what happens. If this doesn't work, you're going to see how to figure these things out on your own. So I saved that. So let's go to our share. Let's go back to our page. Shift refresh. Boom. Hey, it floated right. Okay, so one of the reasons we're having a problem with this, and maybe I didn't need the float right, is if you notice, they kind of overlap each other a little bit, don't they? So our 50 and 50 doesn't work out. I think the borders are throwing us off. So let's, instead of getting rid of the borders right now because I want to leave them, let's go back to our code. And I'm going to switch both of these to be 40%. We don't want it. Oops. What did I do? I think my numlux went off. There we go. 40%, 40%, save it, and let's go view and watch. Or I'm thinking that I don't need this float right here. Right now, I'm just going to comment it out so it's not used. Save it. Go to our new share, go to our page, share, shift, refresh. Boom, nope, I think I need my float rate. So let's try our float rate and see what happens. So go back to our share. There we go. Put that float rate back in, save. Go back to our page. There we go. So we're floating right, we're floating left. I'd kind of like them to be in the center next to each other, but we'll deal with that in a little bit here. So, okay. So now we've got that floating. I also like them to float in the middle. So we'll play with this a little bit, or not necessarily in the middle, but we'll adjust our heights and things like that as we go. We won't actually have main being a full width. In fact, let's go do that right now. That'll be more realistic. So let's go back to our code, share, and I'm going to go to my main, and I'm going to get rid of the height entirely. I just want my main to deal with whatever's in it. So save that, go back, shift, refresh. There we go. Oh, that's interesting. Why contact info go up inside? Oh, because of the floats. Okay. So we're going to play with this a little bit. We'll play with that eventually. I don't want to deal with that quite yet. So let's go back to here, and let's put our height back in for our main. Let's go about 200 pixels now, so it's not so big. So. Okay. So go back, check our page. There, that's better. Okay, so we got our general layout here. So this may be a little high, this may be a little bit low. So let's start by recently worked with images. Let's drop our image in here. So let's drop our image inside of our image screen. So let's go back here. Let's go up to our image. So instead of image here, we're going to actually put in the physical image. So if you remember back, the tag is img. Source equals, this is where the source is, and there is no closing image tag. So we want to go get that source. So let's go to the page where you found this video. So if I go back to here, and if I go to Mr. C's videos, you got your intro to web. It won't say on YouTube shortly, it'll say on YouTube. But image for lesson, here is this. This lives on my page. So I'm going to grab that URL. I'm going to go back to my code. And I'm going to paste that URL in there. I'm going to save it. I made a major change. Let's go see how this affected everything. So let's go take a look. Oops. Let's go back to our USB idea generator, shift, refresh. Now this image is way too big for what we want. So we want to reduce. Now what's kind of interesting here with the float, because contact info isn't floating either, it kind of overwrites what's in contact info. So we'll deal with that a little bit too once we get going here, but let's reduce the size. If I right click on this image and there should be view image info. Look at my image info. Size is 673 by 433. So I want to reduce that. This is width by height. So I'm going to drop my height down a bit, and I'm not going to worry about my width. That will just go along with it. So let's close that. I don't know if you're able to even say that because it was a new window, so you may not have seen it, but if you do the image info, you can find it. So let's go back to our code. Okay. In here, we could do it CSS, but I'm just going to go into here. Width equals, or not width, I want height. We don't want to do both of them because then we got to make sure everything's exactly the same. Otherwise, we'll squish it or stretch it. Let's make the height 200 pixels and see what that looks like. Save it. Go back up to here to share, shift, refresh. Okay, that's a better height, better size. We can deal with that. That's a good size for this picture. In fact, Paige, we could probably make it bigger than that. Let's go to 300 just real quick. So let's go to here, code, there we go. Okay, let's change this to 300. And while we're in here, let's drop the float left and see what happens. There we go. I'm just going to comment it. Control S. Come up that float left. Oops, just a second. I got to change with the share, otherwise you can't see my change. Share, shift, refresh. Okay, that's a better size. Our floats are doing some weird things, so we're going to play with that in a little bit, but we're getting the general idea what's going on. So we've got that. I'm going to go ahead and drop my borders on some of this right now. So that we're going to show that here's a better way to set apart your thing. So I'm going to go up here and I'm going to get rid of my border solid on my divs. It's gone. In fact, I don't think I'm going to apply any styles to the divs at all, so I'm going to get rid of it. So here's a better way to style and it looks good. Let's go to our header, our head, and let's add a background color. Colon, and let's make it a gray. Now I'm just going to use hexadecimal colors here. So pound and grays are generally all the same. If we go 000, that's black. Or if you want to do 6 digits, 000000 is black. If we go FFF or FFFF, it's white. So let's go a slightly mid-range. Let's try AAA. Now again, if all the letters are the same, you can just do the 3, or I think you can even get away with doing 1. Okay, so save that. Now if I go back to my page, oh, you didn't see my code because I didn't change my share. Okay, let's go change my share. Okay, so what I did is I went back into here. I changed the height to 300 pixels instead of 200. I got rid of my div share up here, so it's gone entirely, so I don't have border solid anywhere. I'm gonna get rid of the borders. That was just to show you the layout. Then I went under my head and I added a line, background color AAAA to it to get our gray. Let's save that and let's change our share so you can see it. And shift and refresh. Boom, hey, look at that. Now you can see a nice gray border for that. Let's do the same thing with contact info. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to go back to my code. I'm going to go down to my foot. I'm going to do the same thing, background, color, colon, and this time I'm just going to go straight black. So I'm going to pound 000. Now the font I have in there, this contact info won't show up on black because it's black on black. So I'm going to change the font color to white. So I'm just going to do color and then pound FFF, white. Save it. Change my share. Shift refresh. Boom. There we go. Although you can't see it because it's under the image. Float kind of also causes it to leave the page a bit. So here we're gonna play with that in a little bit. Let's go back to our code. we'll play with the float here in a second. We'll go look how to do this. This will be a good opportunity to show you. I'm going to get rid of the float right as well. And I'm going to get rid of the height on main. I'm just going to let it take up whatever space it needs. Since we're not floating now, it doesn't care as much about space. So I got rid of the float right, float left, and the height are all commented out. I saved it. Now I'll go here, share, shift, refresh, boom. That's interesting. I got my image and my description is under my image. So I've got my image. Oh, that's because I still got height and width on my, here, I'll show you. I've still got height and width on my image and on my description. I'm going to get rid, okay, so we're going to drop the float left. They're just clouding things up right now. We're going to drop the height on main, so we're just going to leave main empty. I'm going to drop the height on image and the height on description. So the only thing that has height now is the head and the foot. And actually, that's how we're going to end up. We want height there to just show us a little bit about what's going on. So, okay, save that. Go take a look. Shift, refresh. There we go. So now we got our image. We got our description, which I eventually want to put over here. So what if you don't know how to do something? Say, I want description on the right and image on the left. Guess where you go? This is an old trick with all coders. All coders do this. Google CSS. So I know I want to do it with cascading style shapes. Put divs side by side. So there we go. So when you Google, should always use what you're looking, where you're looking first. So we're looking CSS. So Stack Overflow isn't a bad place. It's a little bit technical. If you're looking for Stack Overflow, W3 Docs is actually documents, or could be documents for the web itself. How to align divs side by side. Let's go to W3 Docs and take a look. So click on there. Come on, you can do it. Didn't lose my, nope, still got my internet access. How come nothing happened? Click it again. There we go. Okay, so create. So what they do, you can go down here and you can say, oh, they got column 1, they got column 2. How do you put them side by side? There's column 3. Where's the CSS? So it's not there. Okay, add CSS, the float property. So they are using the float. Float property. Okay, background color, width, height, text. Okay, use CSS clear property, which is directly related to float property. It defines an element that should be next to the floating elements, or it should be below them. So this is a little technical, what's going on here. But if you look at this, they'll say, okay, our boxes, clear both. Okay. Example, yeah, this is a little more technical than what we want to get at. Oops, ran just a second. What I worked on, show a div, display div, div side. Let's go back here again. So let's look at how to place divs side by side, Stack Overflow. So this one, again, is a little bit technical, but you can kind of find your way through it. So 100% div, so here's his styles. Oh, here they're doing an inline style. Instead of having the styles live somewhere else, you can actually put a style equals inside of your tag and do it there. Width, margin left. Okay, so this is a little more technical than what I'm looking for, and it doesn't always have exactly what you're looking for. I believe if we want to play with our display methods, things like that. So I'll save that right now for the next video. I'll do a little research on that. So for right now, we're just going to go back to here. So let's go work on our header and our footer while we're here and our image. Okay, so let's go back to our code, share. Wonder how we're doing on time here. Okay, so let's put a little something to style in here. So in our description, let's add a description. We're going to make it a fairly simple description, but we're going to spread it out, make it take up some space. Key to readable websites is white space, having plenty of space in between things. See what's there. So I'm going to create a div in here. We'll give it an ID or class later if we want. And our first div is going to actually be the name of the product. We want that somewhere. So I'm going to say USB idea generator. Okay, there we go. Actually, let's give this a div of prod. I forgot to give it an ID, sorry. ID equals prod title. Okay, so now it's got an ID that we can use to style it with. Okay, under that, we're going to have a div prod, oops, ID equals prod description. And under that, we're going to have a div this div is going to be ID by button, BTN. Okay. Product description. I'm just going to throw in something really quick. We can add some more things, or maybe I'll add some later. Ever run out of ideas? Just plug this into your computers. USB, oops, Control Z is your friend with touchpads. USB, what's going on? Your computers, USB port. Wait, the light bulb. Okay, so something simple. Down here, we're going to create a button. Buttons normally live in forms. Right now, I'm just going to put the button in here. So it's under input. It's an input type. Input type equals, oops, equals button value equals by me. This is what's going to appear on the button. Inputs don't have a closing. They just have the extra slash there. Okay, we've done a bunch of stuff. Let's save it and let's view it. And I think we're running low on time. This one's getting a little bit long. Share, shift, refresh. Okay, so there we got our title, our description, and by me. Not styled at all yet. So okay, we got the basis here. I'm going to end this video now, and we're going to work on this next week. If I find the video super short, I'll add a part 2. But we'll go from there. Again, if you have any questions, don't be afraid to email me at mrc@mrcscience.com.